Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. It's great to have all of you here. I want to begin by welcoming all that you bring with you to this space, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that helps make you who you are. And this, of course, includes those who are in the room with us this morning, as well as the many of you who are also streaming with us. Thanks to everyone for being here. Before we take a few moments to greet one another, just a couple announcements. One, we're having, if you haven't noticed, hopefully you got word earlier, but it's also in your order of service, there's a church work party, all church work party after the service for those who can stay to help with some things around the building. And Julie's going to help with that, but just as a potential hook, you might know that there's going to be a pine cone tossing contest. There's some baskets out there, so what's the prize? What's the prize if you win? Do you get to take the pine cones home? Money. Ooh, money. 25 cents to hit the basket. Wow. All right. Where's Max at? He's probably got a good arm. Yeah? Okay. So work party, I hope you'll be able to stay for that. Wanted to let you know that next Saturday at 2 o'clock, church member Lee Smith's memorial service, who passed away earlier this year, is going to be held here in our sanctuary. So for those who want to remember Lee, put that on your calendar. And then next Friday night, the 20th, we're going to have a reception and screening of the documentary Remembering Ranger, NASA's first moonshot, featuring our own church member and spaceman Don Willingham, who was one of the original engineers on Project Ranger, which really was one of NASA's earliest programs and ended up becoming, after many trials and error, the first successful attempt to reach the moon, to successfully reach the moon. So that'll be 6 o'clock next Friday, about a half-hour documentary, about a half hour for questions and responses from Don, as well as some time to have a bit of reception time afterwards as well. So hope you put that on your calendar as well. So with that said, let's take a few moments now to greet one another. And as always, make some new friends today if you don't know everybody in the room. And if you are joining us via our live stream, feel free to shoot us a text. Okay, more time to visit with one another during our social period following our service, so please stay around for that. Let us move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection today is a poem called Small Kindnesses by Danush Lemaris. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull their legs in to let you go by. Or how strangers say, bless you, when someone sneezes. It's a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, they are saying. Sometimes if you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else may help you pick them up with you. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot, and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them, and for them to smile back. for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass by. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat."
Our first in-service hymn of the morning is number 128, "For All That Is Our Life." Please rise as you're willing and able. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, sore services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
We will now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. We begin with the a candle we've been lighting each Sunday for the people of Ukraine and Russia and that area of the world that are being most impacted by what's going on there. Also want to light a candle this morning for the victims of the latest mass shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. And I just want to say, I have noticed that the Supreme Court's argument for ending Roe v. Wade is that abortion wasn't mentioned in the Constitution, neither were assault weapons. Okay? If they want to If they want to permit muskets, I'm okay with that. All right, we'll compromise. But this is terrible what's happening, and the justifications don't make any sense. So, nor the claim that they love life. How do you love life and let these shootings happen every day? Okay, take a deep breath, and let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. This is the third Sunday of the month, which means it is the day that we hold a special collection for a worthy organization in our community. And I'm just getting a text here of somebody wanting me to sell my house. Let me take this, would you? No, just kidding. Boy, these guys. Ugh. But I am actually on the website for our special collection organization, which is the Odyssey Youth Movement, something we've given to frequently over the years in this congregation. Very worthy local organization. The mission of the Odyssey Youth Movement is to promote equity for particularly LGBTQ plus youth in the inland Northwest through youth-driven programs and community education. And I know we continue to give to them not only because this is a mission that we share, but also because the values we share are so similar. The values listed on Odyssey Youth Movement's website are dignity, social justice, and community. And here's what they say about dignity: that all people have inherent worth. Right? We're down with that. Social justice. Inland Northwest youth deserve equitable access to resources and opportunities. Absolutely. And community. Human connectedness fosters a greater understanding of self, others, and the world around us. That seems to me to be about as in line with our values as anything I know of. So I know that you will want to contribute to this organization, and thank you in advance for your generosity as we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Oh, it's so good to hear the extraordinary talents of Professor Paul Grove. Paul, thank you so much. It's now time for our story for all ages, so anybody who would like to come up front, if you want to get a little closer, please do. Yes. Very good. All right, and as always, I brought a special friend with me to help today, okay? All right, this is my special friend, Charlie McCarthy. Charlie, it's good to see you. Let's adjust the microphone.
Oh, speaking of which,
Yes?
before we begin reading your script,
Yes?
would you please not back away from the microphone the way you did during the first service?
Oh, did I do that?
Yes. Do you understand how this works?
I'll try to do a better job. By the way, Charlie, you're looking really good. Is that a new tuxedo? Oh, let's straighten it up here. Sorry. Wow, really messed you up here, buddy.
There.
Is it a new tuxedo?
Oh, this whole thing? Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, anyway, good to see you.
Well, it's good to see you too, but it is a little early for a performance, isn't it? I don't even know the venue.
Well, this is not a venue. This is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. And we're not here to perform. We're actually here to run around. Right?
Well, that's good because we haven't rehearsed and I have no idea what words might come out of your mouth.
That's a really good point. Huh? His hat does come off, but it wouldn't fit you. Your head's too tiny yet. Yeah. So you're not going to have to worry about what I say, Charlie. Well, why not? Well, because this is the Unitarian Universalist Church, and here we're free to express ourselves, right? Whether people disagree with us or not, and we still like each other, right? At least we're supposed to, right? Max agrees with me. He's shaking his head yes.
Well, this could be fun. Say, is there any chance my old friend W.C. Fields is here?
W.C. Fields? No, he's not.
Well, too bad. I'd like to poke fun at his big red nose.
Well, no, he's not here. W.C. Fields is an old rival of Charlie's. And, even if he was here, it's not nice to poke fun of somebody's nose by asking them if they're eating a tomato.
Oh, well, you said it, not me.
Yes, but I've heard you say it plenty of times.
Well, I thought you said I can say whatever I want and he's still supposed to like me.
Well, yes, but we don't intentionally hurt people's feelings or try to make...
Yeah, get close to the microphone, would you?
or try to make them mad.
Well, then what's the fun of saying anything you want?
Oh, come on, Charlie. We don't mind a good laugh now and then, but around here we actually try to discuss serious matters, right?
Well, like what?
Well, like the meaning of life.
Oh, I see. What is it?
Well, it's a big question. We haven't figured it out yet, Charlie, and perhaps we never will.
Well, what's the fun of asking questions you can't answer?
Well, perhaps we like the challenges of it and the chance of learning something new, even if we don't have all the answers.
You know, this is the strangest church I've ever been in.
You don't say,
I do say. I thought churches are where people go to find the answers.
Well, that may be true of most, but Unitarians prefer to question our answers rather than answer our questions.
Oh, this really is too early. You've just given me a headache.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I know you prefer to probably be out fishing somewhere without a care in the world or a thought on your mind.
Now, that's an idea I don't disagree with.
Well, we're kind of, you might say, we're fishing for wisdom, Charlie.
Oh, what kind of fish is that?
Well, wisdom is not a fish. Wisdom is what we gain from our experiences the older we get. We become even wiser because we have a lot more experiences. That's why it's important to respect and listen to our elders.
Well, if I listened to my elders, I'd never have any fun.
Well, Charlie, truthfully, will you move that script for me? Truthfully, You're the oldest person in the room.
I am?
Yes.
No.
Yes, you were born, so to speak, in 1919, which makes you 103 years old. Can you believe Charlie's 103 years old? Yeah.
Well, no wonder my back is killing me. I feel like someone has their hand wrapped around my spine.
Sorry about that, Charlie. I'll ease up. But before you go, would you like to share some of your wisdom with us?
My wisdom?
Yeah, something you've learned over your many years.
Well, let me think about that. Yeah, I think I have it.
Well, what is it?
3 things.
3 things. Okay, what's the first?
Play hooky from school and go fishing every chance you can get away with it.
Now, Charlie, you don't mean that. Why, a good education...
Now, remember, I get to say whatever I want, whether you agree or not.
All right, go ahead.
Second, don't start a business selling lemonade, Nathan water out of your goldfish tank.
Good idea. Good idea. Thanks for the tip. What else? We're all eager to hear what you have to say.
Well, the most important piece of advice I have is never, and I mean never, let others put words into your mouth.
Good advice, Charlie. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. And we'll now sing our children out.
Oh, but before we do that,
Oh.
we have to sing happy birthday to somebody who had a birthday earlier this month.
Oh,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Todd. Happy birthday to you. And now we can sing the children.
And now we can sing the children out. Thank you.
The meditation in words comes from the Tao of Pooh. Author Benjamin Huff writes, in the story of the ugly duckling, when did the ugly duckling stop feeling ugly? When he realized he was a swan. Each of us has something special, a swan of some sort, inside, hidden, somewhere. Until we recognize it's there, what can we do but splash around treading water? Along the way to usefulness and happiness, many of the things we need to change will change themselves, and the others can be worked on as we go.
For our reading today, I'm going to read from my own book, Evolution's Way, because in my sermon I'll be talking a little bit about exponential evolution. So I thought I'd read just a quick paragraph on something I say about it in my book. In a world of exponential change amidst a technological singularity, humans will have to live in a world of constant disruption that requires us to continuously learn and adapt, a world that has already begun. Driverless cars are a good example. On my way to the airport after my week at Singularity University had ended a few years ago, I asked my Uber driver what he was going to do when autonomous cars take over the roads. He insisted it won't happen for a very long time and isn't something he needed to worry about anytime soon. Maybe, but consider this. During another lecture, Neil Jacobson, Singularity University's Artificial Intelligence and Robotics Chair, showed a 1904 photograph of a busy New York City intersection filled with horses and only 2 cars. A 1917 photo of the same congested intersection showed no horses and all cars. In 1900, there were only 8,000 cars in the world. Just 20 years later, there were 8 million. And that was at a time technology was creeping along compared to the present. Paul, thank you. Saying thanks seems inadequate compared to your talent, but it's all I got, so thank you. Most in our society, and I'm guessing most in the room, have heard of the Rapture. Although it is part of modern Christian mythology, it has also entered into pop culture through several successful films and books. In 1970, fundamentalist Christian Hal Lindsey published his best-selling book about the end times, The Late Great Planet Earth. How many of you remember that? In it, Lindsey interprets the bewildering imagery in the New Testament's book of Revelation in light of current events to mean that we are now in the end of days. Late Great sold over 35 million copies in its first 2 years and was translated into over 50 languages. In 1978, the book was turned into what at the time became the most successful Hollywood documentary in history, narrated by Orson Welles. Its success created a cultural genre leading to other successful films like The Omen in 1976, which was followed by 2 sequels and a remake in 2006, along with The Seventh Sign in 1988, Arnold Schwarzenegger's End of Days in 1999, and many other lesser-known productions about the end times or the birth of the Antichrist. A 2006 PBS Frontline story claimed that Lindsey had started what it called America's doom industry. And what a lucrative industry it has become. Between 1995 and 2007, Christian authors Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins published 16 best-selling novels in their Left Behind fiction series about the final years of the biblical apocalypse after millions of Christians suddenly vanished from the face of the planet. Several of these books made it to #1 on New York Times bestsellers list. It was such a phenomenon that its small publishing company, Tyndall House Publishers, soon doubled its staff, added 25,000 square feet of office space to its main building, constructed an additional 60,000 square foot warehouse to store just its Left Behind books, and purchased 53 more acres for future expansion. The result, after 50 years of this mythos seeping into pop culture, is that we have all become familiar with terms like the end times, the second coming, Armageddon, the Antichrist, 666, the mark of the beast, and the rapture. Whether we're evangelical Christians or not. More pertinent, perhaps, is the influence that it has had on some high-level officials and policymakers. As the now late history professor Paul Boyer once commented, Hal Lindsey seems to have had considerable influence not just on the part of the public as a whole, but on some of the highest levels of government, including, according to Lindsey, giving seminars at the Pentagon and seminars at the National War College to throngs of attendees. Likewise, Tim LaHaye had been the national campaign manager for conservative Republican Jack Kemp's 1998 attempt to become the party's presidential nominee. LaHaye had to resign from the campaign after he was accused of making anti-Catholic and anti-Jewish remarks, which he called scurrilous and untrue. He was also on the original board of directors for the Moral Majority, and a founder of the Council for National Policy, which ABC News has called the most powerful conservative organization in America that you've never heard of. This highly secretive 8-member council has included alumni such as President Ronald Reagan's National Security Advisor, Oliver North, Tommy Thompson, who was a cabinet member during the George W. Bush administration, along with Bush's Attorney General, John Ashcroft. While campaigning in 1999, Bush himself spoke to the council and has refused to release his comments to the public. A year later, a 2000 Time CNN poll found that 59% of Americans believe the prophecies in Revelation will come true. It is by far the belief of most evangelical Christians in the U.S. In a 2020 Rolling Stone article, Amy Freicombe, the senior editor of the Christian Century and author of Rapture Culture, said, "When I first started researching, I had this idea that I would be studying a subculture, and then Left Behind happened. And I was like, I don't think this is a subculture. This may be the dominant American culture, and the rest of us are the subcultures. I mean, this is mainstream." Although the number may be decreasing, we might assume, along with church membership in the U.S., which has now dipped below 50% for the first time in history, there are still a lot of people in this country and around the world who take the ideas of Hal Lindsey and Tim LaHaye seriously, including the belief in the rapture, that Jesus will return to earth and snatch up all of his followers in an instant, in the twinkling of an eye, leaving the rest of us to wish we had listened when warned about what was about to happen. This particular belief about the rapture doesn't come from the book of Revelation, but from the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus is discussing the end of the world, or said to be. "This is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man," he says. "2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left behind. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill, one will be taken and the other left behind." Matthew contains another verse that is also included in the Gospels of Mark and Luke. "Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Even the Apostle Paul, who many consider the true founder of Christianity, was so convinced of the impending return of Christ that he advised Christians not even to bother getting married, because he said, "The time is short, for this world in its present form is passing away." Yet both Jesus and Paul got it wrong. The rapture, as it is now called, did not happen when they said it would, and has not happened in 2,000 years, because it's not going to happen and it can't happen. Right? Things like that don't happen because they can't happen. Yet to this day, many still believe it will and that it can. And there have been many times throughout history that religious leaders have convinced lots of others of its exact time, only to find themselves disappointed. Since the 6th century, there have been more than 50 precise predictions of the exact year, sometimes to the day, when the second coming would occur. Dozens of times since the Enlightenment period alone, and there are currently several predictions as to when Jesus will pop in again in the years ahead. Believing a biblical generation to be 40 years, Hal Lindsey himself calculated that it would have happened in 1988. More recently, World Bible Society President F. Kenton, or Doc Bashir, has argued that Lindsey got it wrong because a biblical generation is not 40 years, but somewhere between 70 and 80 years. Putting the apocalypse, as he had previously predicted, between 2018 and 2028, with confidence that the rapture itself will occur by 2021. The Lord is running late, as always. All of this goes back to what I talked about a bit about in last week's sermon, about turning ideas into idols. The secret to processing mythology, including religious mythology, along with its sometimes wild imagery, is not to ask what it means, but to ask what it means to you. What it means to you might be different than what it means to me, and what it means to me is probably a lot different than what it meant to whoever originally came up with it, and to those who first heard it and were meant to be its audience ages ago. It is by nature symbolic, allowing us to play freely with it in order to realize something about ourselves or about our world. Turning it into a literal, historical, and hard truth is to kill this myth's potential to bring us meaningful insights. Did you know, for example, that the earliest surviving gospel, the Gospel of Mark, written around 65 CE, about 30 years after Jesus' execution, does not have a resurrection account? There was such an account added 2 centuries later to make it jive with what became orthodoxy, a doctrinal belief in a literal physical resurrection. But the author of Mark simply ends his account, which culminates in the tragic execution of a man whose inspiring teachings about love and acceptance and forgiveness and sharing, with the mysterious image of an empty tomb. There's a young man there who tells Jesus' followers he is risen, but no sightings of Jesus. And those who discover it, they simply run away, too frightened to tell anyone about it. You know, it's like that classic scene of seeing a UFO, you know, in a TV series or something. Did you see, the pilot said, did you see that? I didn't see anything, you know. And that's how the story ends, leaving our imaginations open to what that empty tomb might mean after such a tragic ending. It's very poetic. In Mark, the empty tomb is a literary device for capturing the imaginations of his readers, as well as ending on an up note. What does the empty tomb mean for you? That Jesus can live on through his teachings? That Jesus can live on through his followers? That spring always follows winter? That there is always reason for hope, that life goes on? It can mean a lot of things to different people. But when we literalize it, or one interpretation becomes a cultural idol we cannot offend, a doctrine that we cannot deny, then it becomes meaningless and empty. Indeed, as later Gospels were written, the resurrection motif becomes increasingly literal. In Matthew, written about 20 years after Mark, there are actual Jesus sightings added to the story. Kind of like Paul, who experiences him as a blinding light on the road to Damascus, suggesting that the resurrection wasn't merely a metaphor, but was an actual spiritual resurrection, that Jesus is kind of a spirit that some encounter from time to time. This makes sense, given that it is also in Matthew that Jesus is reported to have said, "And remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." It seems obvious this statement wasn't to be taken literally, but to mean that Jesus would be spiritually present. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in their midst. Although he'd been executed, Jesus could still be with them in spirit. At least that's what I get from Matthew's account of the story. As time passed, however, the story was taken more literally, requiring some explanation of why, if Jesus is literally with us to the end of the age, why is he nowhere to be seen? Where is he? So the writer of Luke, written a few years after Matthew, adds an ascension account to the story, saying that he was seen by many and that while he was blessing them, he withdrew from them and was carried up to heaven. That explains it. He's with us to the end of the age, but he's not on earth anymore. That's why we don't see him. So Jesus' resurrection was literal. Although he has since left us, he won't return, as the myth evolved until the second coming. Yet even then, there arose debate about whether the resurrection was spiritual or physical. You see how the idolatrization of beliefs happens, going from a metaphorical image full of meaning to a hard physical reality. Turning the nameless, shapeless, shifting mystery into a golden calf. So by the time the Gospel of John is written, sometime in the early years of the 2nd century, the debate is settled. John adds an account in which Jesus is eating with his followers and allows doubting Thomas to touch the scars and the wounds from his crucifixion. From metaphor to spiritual to literal to hard physical reality in less than 100 years. As those of you who regularly hear me speak know, I like to play with the imagery from the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures a lot because that's my background, that's my training. But until recently, I had not had any interest in this peculiar story of the end of days, Jesus' second coming, the rapture, the Antichrist, and so on. And this is probably so for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I was a teenager and had just become a born-again Christian when the late great planet Earth was released in movie theaters. I instantly became a Hal Lindsey devotee, snatched up his following book, Countdown to Armageddon, and read every other book he'd written. Lindsey shaped my earliest Christian beliefs more than any other. A few years later, while studying religion in a liberal arts college and being taught to think critically, albeit in a Southern Baptist university in the heart of the Bible Belt, I felt I had been bamboozled by Lindsey. I realized his claims were preposterous, along with a lot of other fundamentalist beliefs that I once held. So feeling a bit embarrassed, I think I lost complete interest in the modern myth of the end times. Another reason I've not had much interest in it is that it has become so literalized in our society that I'm turned off by the topic. It's so profoundly associated with fundamentalist thinking, which I consider a form of fixation, the psychological term for being stuck at an immature stage of development, that it seems as far from my interest as anything can be. But a few weeks ago, I just happened to be contemplating the times that we're now living in and how fast that things are changing, about how change is happening so fast that some people must feel like they're standing still. And that's when that verse I began with popped into my head. 2 men will be working in the field, one will be taken and the other left behind. And it suddenly became alive for me again. It made sense. Everyone alive today is in the midst of a rapture. Not the literal rapture, excuse me. Not the literal rapture evangelical Christians believe in, but a real phenomenon I think that this myth can help us reflect upon. When it happens, some of us are enraptured, or caught up in it, if you will, and others are left standing still wondering what just happened. We feel like we're behind the times, as if social changes and technological advances are leaving us behind. Some of us are confused, while others are glad to be left behind because moving forward is too frightening a specter. Like the unbelievers who won't listen to the prophecies until it's too late, there are many today who cling cling firmly to ways and ideas that simply don't make sense anymore. They are like those left standing alone in the field when everyone else has moved on. It's a powerful metaphor when considered in this light. Which person do we want to be? Which person do you want to be? Do you want to be the one who is enraptured and transformed, or the one who's left standing in a world you no longer understand? As such, the metaphor of the rapture can be useful for reflecting on a variety of real-life issues, but the one I'm reflecting on is the coming singularity, the moment in time when exponential evolution is happening so quickly that it's happening all at once. Instead of progressing through linear time, it's in a vertical line. Exponential means that change happens very slowly, starts off very slowly for most of its existence, very slowly, almost unnoticed, and continues to move very slowly to a long time until suddenly it explodes in this exponential curve. That's how evolution happens. It catches us off guard. Given my own understanding of what's happening, I will dare, like the prophets of old, to predict that some of those who are standing here today will not taste death until they see the singularity. That it will happen in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye. The time is short, for the world in its present form is passing away. It is the exponential nature of evolution that causes us to get caught off guard, to be left standing in the field, because technology has the ability to evolve so much faster than our biology can, we're witnessing this exponential reality pass right before our eyes today. Futurist Ray Kurzweil, author of the best-selling book The Singularity is Near, based upon his discovery of what he calls the law of accelerating returns, distinguishes, I should say, between intuitive linear and historical exponential views of technological evolution. He means that if we look at things from our own experience of time, our own linear perspective, we can't imagine the AI of today, for example, matching human intelligence for hundreds of years. But if you look from the perspective of historical exponentials, which can be calculated to the decade, sometimes to the year, or within just a couple of years, AI will achieve human-level intelligence in the early years of the next decade, and probably surpass human intelligence by 2040. Exponential growth is a feature of an exponential process, Kurzweil says, of which technology is a primary example. Right? It's a type of evolution we can see happening in front of us in our own lifetimes, unlike biological evolution. Another way to understand exponentials is to consider the parable of the man who asked his kingdom to pay him simply by putting a grain of rice on the first square of a chessboard and then doubling the number of grains each square thereafter. From our linear perspective, this seems like the bargain of a lifetime. Who would work for such little reward? But the law of accelerating returns recognizes that 2 to the 64th power adds up to 18 quintillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million, 551,615 grains of rice. That's more rice than there would be stars in 180,000 Milky Ways. When change is happening that fast, you are either going to be enraptured by it or left behind. I've often spoken about how our world has been exponentially moving toward a single global community throughout human history. It's been very slow, but thousands of tribes to a few kingdoms to 4 worlds to 1 world. And it's happened exponentially. And in truth, I believe it has happened. It already has happened. But most of us don't understand it because we've been left standing still in the field. Right? We're still in the field of the nation state, looking at the world through that old perspective that doesn't work anymore. We're behind the times. We're still thinking about ourselves in old ways, which explains the rise of dictators and nationalists, Brexit, border walls, identity ethics, tribalism, and even Putin's current attempt to make Russia great again. Freudian slip. Which are all futile, pointless efforts to turn back the clock. They won't work. But today, in reality, we are already one global community, as evidenced by a global banking system, global communications, global corporations, a global economy, global education, global employment, global environmental issues, global laws, global pandemics, global science, a global space program, and a global supply chain. And increasingly, global democracy, global human rights, global prosperity, and global camaraderie still emerging. And just wait for these to burst onto the scene. Just wait for those pieces of the puzzle to start putting in real systems to make the new reality work. Wait till we start speaking of ourselves as earthlings, as humanity. I imagine most everyone in the room today has a smartphone with them. Just as most people in the world do. It's now over 83% of the global population has smartphones. And that's one more thing that makes us a global community, a new world, that most of us have the ability to communicate with each other no matter where we're from. Right? Remember a few years ago when it would cost us an arm and a leg to call the next county? Right? Now we can call anybody in the world for one low monthly price. During this decade, we will get very close to colonizing Mars and becoming an interplanetary species, to adopting autonomous green vehicles as our primary source of transportation, moving to vertical farming instead of using 40% of our usable land for growing food. We'll have AI technology that we can actually converse with, and smart robots small enough to go into our bodies and remove specific cancer cells. Reverse aging, green energy will become dominant, and we will bring digital technology into the real world. It's already happening through 3D printing and manufacturing. So often, technology helps us digitize things. Now we're reversing and helping the digital world enter into the physical world through 3D printing. We'll be 3D printing and manufacturing everything from clothes to houses and from automobiles to the food that we eat. What do I want today? Alexa, give me an Impossible Burger. Now, some of this may sound frightening, understandably so, because change can be frightening. But again, think about the fear that many would have felt just a few decades ago if you'd have said, we're going to have the most powerful computers, the most powerful technology in human history in the hands of most people in the world. That'd have been a scary specter, right? Just 2 years ago, a smartphone would have cost you twice as much and been half as powerful as today's. Just 2 years ago. That's how fast it improves. That's how fast they evolve. Right? Double their power, become half the size, half the expense in just a couple of years. Today, a $200 smartphone represents what was $1 trillion worth of computational and communications technology in 1965, the year before I was born. But it was only $1 billion worth 15 years later in 1980. That's how much cheaper it became to produce and to purchase. And today, just a few years past 1980, at least from my perspective, the most powerful computational and communications tool in human history costs just a few dollars and is in the hands of almost everybody on the planet. So it may not be the second coming of Christ, and it's not the apocalypse, even if some might feel like it is, but it is a type of rapture, a flash, a twinkling of the eye moment in our history. And it is happening right now. We're in the curve. At least that's what the mythology means to me at this moment in my life. It can mean something else to me later. It can mean something else to you. You're free to play with the imagery so long as you don't take it literally. Maybe being left behind reminds you of a time you felt abandoned by others, or completely alone in the world, or like there was nobody left to turn to. Maybe it reminds you of what it feels like to be afraid of major changes, the fear of letting go, the fear of taking a giant leap of faith. There are many kinds of rapture moments, and it's always important to consider which character we are going to be in the story. The one caught up or the one left behind. However you look at it, it might be helpful to remember that the book of Revelation, upon which today's literal apocalyptic beliefs are based, isn't all doom and gloom, despite that being the industry it started or is based on. Revelations ends rather with its visionary writer. Some say it's stoned out of his mind writer, saying, after all of this scary stuff, this bewildering imagery, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and earth had passed away. I think that's the best part of the message for me, that no matter the upheaval that we sometimes experience in our lives and in the world, that things may turn out better than we could have ever imagined. We might end up in a better place with a better world. And that is my hope. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, way back in the 60s, there was a song about changes. Maybe some of you know it. Bob Dylan's The Times They Are A-Changing. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing it with me. around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesy with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout all the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing.
As we leave the service today, the words are from Amy Zucker Morgenstern. In every person we meet, especially those who cause us discomfort, we can find an opportunity to grow, to learn, to go further along the path of transformation. Every single one is our teacher. May the next week bring you many such meetings to help you become the person you want to be. Welcome them with joy. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.